Yes. Ang topic natin ngayon, I'll go right into it, Mr. Laragan, because they're probably waiting for me to discuss or for us to discuss it
Sige.
further.
Mm,
Ang sabi natin, we'll stay on
sige.
course with this topic because January is the busiest time in the whole year for family lawyers. Madami pong nagde-decide na ito na yung time to separate from my husband or from my wife. And with that, obviously, ang pinakaunang iisipin ng kahit sinong magulang, paano na yung mga bata? Ano bang gagawin namin o ano bang guidance para namin maayos kung ano yung time ng mga bata with each parent. So, I'll start with how I always start with with this topic. Ang number one na consideration, first of all, obviously, is safety. Safety ng mga bata. And you will know why bumabalik tayo doon. Safety, best interest ng mga bata. So, safety, what do I mean with that? So, if there are situation na hindi safe ang mga bata, or we call it safeguarding risk, whether sinasaktan ng magulang, kasi karamihan yun, may rason yan, may rason bakit naghihiwalay. Some reasons can be more severe than other reasons. May reason minsan na may hindi mabuting nangyayari, may sakitan na nangyayari. So, ang unang isi-secure natin, kung safe po kayo at safe ang mga bata. And you can stop contact. You can stop contact kung ang other parent abusive sa mga bata. And there's a wide range of definition of that abuse. At the end of the day, actually, pag hindi nyo naprotektahan yung mga bata sa abusive na environment, hindi lang abusive na parent, but abusive environment, pwede pong mag-intervene ang local authority or social services natin na tinatawag dito sa UK. At sila yung magtatanggal dun sa mga bata, dun sa sitwasyon na yon. And that's when we say, kaya pala na foster care yung mga bata. That's the reality here in the UK. Iba yan sa ating sa kultura natin sa Pilipinas. Iba yan dun sa nangyayari sa Pilipinas. Because what we hear a lot dun sa mga kwento ng mga kababayan natin, tatanong bakit ganun, bakit nakialam ang social services, bakit nakialam yung local authority, kami lang naman nag-aaway ng asawa ko. Sometimes exposing the children in an abusive environment is a form of child abuse by definition of law as well. So, safety muna ang iisipin. That's because the main consideration or the paramount consideration ng korte, yung batas dito napakasimple po, about children arrangement, contact arrangement, kung meron kayong dispute about anong mangyayari sa mga bata, your lawyer will probably tell you a one-liner, how will the court decide about it? They will just ask, what is in the best interest of the child? Yun lang. Yun ang napakasimple na batas sa area na to. Not kung ano yung gusto ng nanay o gusto ng tatay. It's really not about that. It's really about what is in the best interest of the child. So, first of all, safety and best interest of the child. Second, we have a duty to tell you na kung mapapag-usapan, kung wala namang safeguarding issue, walang domestic abuse issue, wala namang hindi naman at risk yung mga bata dun sa other parent, please do consider mediation. We as lawyers would have to tell you that actually bago kayo pumunta sa korte, dun sa form na i-fill up nyo, tatanungin, have you considered mediation? O kung hindi, bakit? Dahil hindi ba appropriate to? Or may urgency? There are exemptions, of course. Pero kailangan daanan natin. Kailangan isipin natin, appropriate ba, tama bang mag-usap muna? And really, the focus of this discussion is that hindi po susunod po tayo, escalate natin next week po natin pag-uusapan yung talagang labanan na dahil may mga safeguarding risk. For now, it's really the practical consideration of a children contact arrangement. So, dun tayo pupunta pag medyo mediation ang pupuntahan natin, pag sasabihin mo, wala naman masyadong problema dito, gusto lang namin pag-usapan talaga, gusto naming mabigyan ng advice kung ano ba yung iisipin namin kung we're sitting down and we're saying, sino mag-aalaga sa kids natin, and ano pa yung kailangan namin pag-usapan. So, this is the practical tips if you're thinking about the contact arrangement. Yan ang technical term namin mga lawyers. Sa pag-uusapan yung magulang kung paano nyo paghahatian ang time nyo. Paghahatian ang time ng mga bata between those two parents. Bearing in mind yung law, babalik ako dun sa law na sinasabi ko, what is in the best interest of the children. So may mga wording akong i-introduce na siguro narinig nyo na if you're a long time viewer here. I always say main carer or resident carer. That's what we use now. Kung saan nakatira mostly yung mga bata, and normally it's term time kung kanino siya dun sa Mondays to Fridays habang nag-aaral sila, or kung sino siya most of the time. That's the resident parent. The other parent is the one where the child has contact with. Kung saan siya weekends or sometimes every other weekend may weekday din siya doon, so mix of weekday and weekend. The reason for that, hindi na yung mga tinatawag pong custody, ako na yung may custody, hindi na po yan. Matagal na po yan na pinalitan. The court wants to neutralize na parang hindi kayo nag-aaway agad kasi custody parang akin lang siya. Hindi na po yan. So, tinasabi ng korte na pag-usapan nyo. That's really the reason why kung walang safeguarding risk, walang mga severe issues, then you're gonna have to discuss how you're going to co-parent. Again, another term, co-parent positively. And there are certain available na mga resources online, as well as this. Hopefully, this will give you some ideas on what to talk to the other parent, or what to talk about with the other parent. So first of all, communication. Ang number one problem, and the reason as well, syempre, kaka-break nyo lang or kakahiwalay nyo. Syempre, problema talaga. Ayaw nyo kausapin yung kabilang partido. Hurt kayo, hurt sila. One of the main problems that I've seen is minsan talaga hirap mag-communicate, o siguro hindi pa mainit pa ang ulo sa isa't isa, mataas ang mga emotion. So it's always good to try to communicate in a more structured manner. Kung contact lang pag-usapan nyo. Huwag yung haluan yung hatian nyo sa pera. I always say that. I-separate nyo yan. Either abogado magsasabi niya. Kung contact lang, because we always say, wala namang problema pag-usapan nyo. Because you will still be seeing this other person for the rest of your life kung co-parent nyo siya. Ang parati ko sinasabi, pag nag-graduate yung anak mo, pag kinasal yan, pag nagkaroon ka ng apo, makikita mo pa rin yan sa mga family events. Hindi mo kayo magkatabi, but they will be around the periphery. So, if walang severe problem, then it'll be good for you to have some level of diplomacy. We appreciate na minsan yun yung kausapin yung isa't isa dahil nga hurt or mataas ang emotion. That's the reason why in the last few years, may mga apps. Ayan, medyo din tayo, modern din tayo dito sa ating legal advice corner. There's actually some application that you can download from your cell phone that can help you and your other co-parent. And from the studies, from what I've heard, it's actually quite useful. So minsan ayaw yung ka-text sila kasi nga ganon. So hindi nyo, you don't want to start an argument with them. You might not want to talk about other things, but just want to keep an eye on schedule ng mga bata. Yun ang importante. Sino saan dapat pumunta? Ano bang birthday party pupuntahan yan? Ano ba extracurricular? Ano ba yung school program? So I can recommend 3 apps. So mas structured lang yung pag-uusapan nyo. Doon na kayo mag-communicate. One is App Close, APP Close. The other one is Cozy. And the third one, which is probably quite well reviewed, is Our Family Wizard. I haven't tried it myself. I just looked at the reviews. Ang sabi sa reviews is maganda yung mga apps na yan kung kayo co-parent and you want to have this structured environment to just discuss the kids. siguro first 6 months, yan ang gagamitin nyo, or siguro yan talaga gagamitin nyo forever, if that works for you. But, it's good if it's worth trying. Dahil, from a lawyer's perspective, that's one thing that doon nagsisimula yung maraming problema. Minsan, pag-uusapan nyo lang naman maayos na, or minsan may na-misinterpret lang or hindi na-explain ng maayos, kaya nagkakaroon ng dispute. It's always also good to draw house rules, kung ano yung communication rules nyo sa isa't isa. One normal rule is na minsan kailangan pang i-impose ng korte, wag niyong siraan yung isa't isa sa harap ng mga bata. Or wag kayo mag-away sa harap ng bata. I think you have to make that clear. And that's also what's expected of you by the court. Because purely, hindi nakakabuti sa mga bata na makikita yung mga magulang nila na nag-aaway sa harap nila o nagsisiraan sa harap nila. I've seen that in court orders. Sana nga, you'd probably think na minsan tignan mo, common sense na lang yan. But actually, maintindihan mo rin naman. Mataas ang emosyon sa mga sitwasyon na to. And sometimes we have to really, really set those communication rules or communication house rules in writing sa isang children contact arrangement. Sometimes you have to put this, most of the time rather, we have to really put this in writing. O, ganito communication natin, dito tayo magko-communicate. So those are yung kumbaga pundasyon when hopefully you can discuss bearing in mind realistic, doable, and practical na pwedeng mangyari. Because I will have parents telling me, I want to be the primary carer, and then I will tell them, or resident carer. I will ask them, sige, ikaw, gusto mo talaga ikaw ang mag-alaga sa bata. Anong shift mo? Anong rota mo? Sasabihin sa akin, anong oras siya mag-uumpisa? What time? 6 a.m. O paano mo dadalhin yung bata sa school? Sino magsusundo sa bata? Who's gonna look after the child? Ano oras uwi mo? Who's gonna look after the child sa gabi? Who's gonna feed them? Who's gonna put them to sleep? Who's gonna do their homework with them? So when you make a proposal or you're gonna talk to each other, siguro alam niyo naman kung ano yung working hours ng isa't isa. It's not always 9 to 5, from the meron tayong nurses, marami tayong nurses, iba-iba yung shift. Marami tayong from other industries, iba-iba din yung shift. From my experience, you really have to sit down with the other person, look at sometimes version siguro kung ano yung nagwo-work sa inyong before, but obviously isang household lang kayo, magiging dalawang household na kayo. So, look at, bago tayo magsabi na, eto, gusto ko ako full-time, tingnan muna natin. Ano nga ba talaga yung schedule natin? Ano yung pwede nating ma-adjust? Baka kailangan yung kausapin yung boss nyo. Maybe you'll have to adjust your working hours. Maybe dun sa kabila din. And then you can really look at sino mag-aalaga, who's gonna prepare the children in the morning, who's gonna pick them up in the evening, kung baby yan, who's gonna be looking after them. Maybe when they're older, it's a bit different. Or teenager yan, that's a bit different. But still, they need to be looked after in the evening. Who's gonna take them to extracurricular activities? Siguro may mga football, mayroong ballet, may mga voice lessons yan. So you really need to look at your lives practically. Kaya title po nito, practical consideration. Because the number of times people would tell me, I want to be the primary carer. Ayoko siya mag-alaga. And I will have to tell them, you really need to tell me kung ano yung buhay nyo on a day-to-day basis, ano yung schedule nyo, para mabigay ko yung proposal na realistic, para mabigay ko yung proposal na child focus. Yun ang ina-expect ng korte. That's really a word that we use in this particular area. It's child focus, it's realistic, it's doable, and it's in the best interest of the child. So you need to do that. Term time. Umpisa kayo sa term time kasi yun ang pinaka talagang kailangan na ayusin. Term time, ano yung schedule ng mga anak nyo? Ano yung extracurricular nila? Sino sino ang who's gonna take them from this to that, who's looking after them. A normal the classic that you'll hear is the resident parent will look after Monday to Friday. The other parent contact with parent will have them alternate weekends, plus meron silang weekday contact dun sa weekend na hindi nila kasama yung bata, para naman walang week na hindi nila nakita yung bata. The reason for that is you'd want, minsan sasabihin, gusto ko lahat ng weekend akin. It also wouldn't work dahil, weekends are for fun things. You want both parents to experience yung fun things, not just yung weekday na nag-grind natin lahat. So you'd want both parents to have that, a bit of the weekday and a bit of the weekend. So term time yun ang iisipin nyo. So yun, talagang kukunin nyo po yung calendar nyo for the whole year. Titingnan nyo yung term time. And then syempre, pag may term time, may non-term time. So maybe you can discuss about school holidays. Pwede nyo hatiin. Again, depende sa work, depende sa kung ano yung allowed na holidays, annual leave. Kung tayo Pilipino, syempre, gusto kong pumunta sa, I want to bring the kids to the Philippines, international travel, itinerary, dapat mas organized kayo dahil, start of the year pala siguro, sabihin nyo na sa other parent, it's good practice. You have to tell the other parent if you're bringing the child outside. Kahit pa sinasabi nyo, dapat okay lang yan kung resident parent and I can get them out as long as it's below 4 weeks. Practically, out of courtesy sa other parent, it's always just good kung aalis ng jurisdiction o mag-a-abroad yung mga bata, na sabihin nyo dun sa magulang. Out of courtesy, out of respect, alam ng magulang kung nasan yung bata, even if you're just going for 3 days abroad. You'll have to talk about who's going to keep the passport. Normally, it's the resident parent. You have to talk about Christmas, New Year, who's gonna have them alternate normally, or religious, kung iba yung religious background nyo, you have to talk about kung Eid man yan, Hanukkah, Rosh Hashanah, or other religious or traditional days for your particular culture. You have to talk about that. You have to talk about Mother's and Father's Day. Syempre, Mother's Day, dun kay mother, Father's Day kay father. You have to talk about birthdays. Birthday ng mga bata, how are they going to spend it each year? And you have to talk about any other special days sa family. What normally happens is hopefully you will set it out one calendar year, try nyo, titingnan nyo what works, and then you get into a pattern of just having that rhythm na kung ano yung alternate man yan, o ito yung gagawin nyo, as long as you agreed and there's fairness to it. Yun naman ang hinahanap ng lahat, that they have positive and meaningful relationship with both parents, that the children have that. But dahil it's in their best interest that they develop good relationship with both parents. Scientifically proven po yan ang approach ng korte. In respect of major decisions, both of you should really discuss it. Education, or the children going to school, religion, extracurriculars, all those things. You can start talking about that, depende syempre sa edad ng bata, kung nasa na siya, maybe education-wise, nasa critical siya na time, GCSE, or secondary school, may entrance exam ba yan. You really have to talk, kung hindi kayo separated na medyo kailangan nyo ng pag-usapan yan, when you're separated, you really have to put a bit more, you really have to talk about it a lot earlier. Allow yourself time, disagreement is normal. Disagreement nga na hindi kayo separated, normal, much more pa na separated na kayo. What I've heard, court says is, we can give you a structure like this, but the reality is imperfect ang buhay. So you're gonna have to really learn how to problem solve with your other co-parent, because at the end of the day, andyan yan sa buhay nyo, dahil you're sharing a child or children together. As I've said, this is kung pag-uusapan nyo, ito yung structure na pag-uusapan nyo, you can get this drawn up by a lawyer, you can get this sealed by the court kahit na para sa inyong peace of mind. Or not, kahit hindi sealed, pwede nyo pag-usapan pa rin dahil dynamic, pwede nyo pa rin sundin to. Dynamic naman to, what works now may not work 5 years from now dahil malalaki na yung mga bata, baka, you know, they probably would just want to go, they have their own schedule and mag-iiba na yung child arrangement, mag-iiba na yung contact. The most important thing is to really have a child-focused agreement. Yun ang hinahanap, yun ang kailangan namin gawin as lawyers, yun ang hinahanap ng korte. If unreasonable ang kabilang partido, if unreasonable ang spouse nyo or a soon-to-be ex-spouse, you can apply to the court. You know, we fill up what we call C100, and kung may mga safeguarding risk, we fill up a C1A. We'll talk more about the formal proceedings next week dahil dito practical considerations tayo eh. But as a general view, you know, kung may mga allegation tayo ang korte, iimbestigahan yan with the aid of CAFCAS. They will try to get to a recommendation. CAFCAS will recommend, they will engage in investigation. CAFCAS is an independent body, social workers, sila yung mga naatasan ng korte na kausapin ng mga magulang, kausapin ng bata. Police disclosure will also, it's routinely asked. So, titingnan talaga kung ano ba yung yung sinabi ng isang magulang na concern niya. Hindi lang yan dahil may sinabi ka they'll take your word for it. Although the court will err on the side of caution depending on the severity of the allegations. But there are processes, as you will see next week, may proseso po yan. And minsan, matagal, just like any court process, it takes time. There's a process to it. But there will be a proper investigation of those issues because the court will want to know before they either completely stop contact, which they have done in some cases. Sabihin nila, naku, hindi safe ang contact dito forever. Letters lang. Or if they will say, no, you can have contact, but in this particular way for a while, supervise muna bago maging completely unsupervised dahil may problema ka sa drugs, o may problema ka o may dati kang problema sa drugs, o may dati kang problema sa alcohol, but you've shown that you've changed, then they can do that as well. The reality is that on all of those proceedings, all of those na sinabi ko, ay babalik po tayo dun sa unang sinabi ko, which is what is in the best interest of the children. And if we can prevent it, na ma-expose sila sa kasuhan na ito, sa litigation na to, sa mga social worker, social services na yan, then mas nakakabuti sa kanila yan. Kung talagang kailangan na protektahan sila dahil hindi mabuti yung magulang, the other parent, then kailangan din natin gawin yan. And there are certain instances where really we have to stop contact. If you need further advice, specific advice, ito po ay overview lang. Please contact me, contact other lawyers, whoever it is na malapit sa inyo, gusto nyo i-contact. This is a pretty technical area of law. Although parents would normally say, well, you know, we should know best kasi parents kami. But please do get legal advice, specific legal advice.